Hi everyone, my name is Rhea and I'm a TA with USC's Young Scientists Program. And as you may know, Southern California usually is really hot and sunny, especially during the summer. And today we're going to talk about these weather conditions and what we can do to stay safe when it's hot and sunny. We're going to get started by talking about the weather in LA. And as you may know, it's usually very hot and sunny. So what are some good things or pros about this? Well, usually when it's hot and sunny, that's pretty good weather for getting to play outside or even maybe going to the beach. But there are some cons or bad things as well. So that could be that you can get tired or sick easily, so that's why it's really important to stay hydrated. It can also be really dangerous for your skin, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So what are some ways you can protect yourself from the sun? One of the most important things, and what we're going to be doing our experiment about today, is sunscreen. You can also use a hat, sunglasses, and an umbrella if you're headed to the beach. Now it's time to talk about some vocabs. We have 3 important words today. Our first word is UV light. And UV light, also known as ultraviolet light, is emitted by the sun, and it can be really damaging to your skin. Our second word for today is SPF. So if you've ever seen a sunscreen bottle, you've probably seen a number on it, and that is the SPF, or the sun protection factor. And it basically says how long the sunscreen will protect you from UV light. And lastly, our last vocab word is control group. And this is important for our experiment today because it's a part of the experiment that is not manipulated and should produce no results. And it's used in terms of comparison. We're going to do something a little bit different from the usual videos today. Today, I'm going to be doing a demonstration, and then I'll be leaving you with an experiment you can do at home. So our demonstration today is looking at UV beads and the different SPFs of sunscreen. So what are UV beads? Well, UV beads are beads that will turn from white to color when they are in the sunlight or touched by a UV ray. And what we're going to look at is what does changing the SPF of sunscreen do to these UV beads. I'll be rubbing different SPFs of sunscreen on plastic bags and putting each different bag outside in the sun to see how it will change. And we'll also remember to have a control group which gets no sunscreen, as we learned in our vocab. Now that we've talked about our question, we can move on to our prediction. And our prediction for today is either there will or there will not be a difference in how bright the beads will be between the control and the different SPF groups. So pause the video here to make your prediction. With the experiment, I had 3 types of sunscreen. I had SPF 30, I had SPF 50, and I also had SPF 70. And I had set apart 4 separate bags, 1 for the control, 1 for 30, 1 for 50, and 1 for 70. I filled each bag with UV beads, and I took the control and I put it to the side. I started by scrubbing the sunscreen on the back of the 30 bag, and I scrubbed it all over, and then I set it aside to dry. I did the same with the 50, and I spread that all over, and once it was spread nicely, I set it to dry. And lastly, I did the same with the 70 SPF, and I let those dry for about 15 minutes altogether. I took each of the beads out in the sun, and I left them there for a few minutes, and here are the results. Let's take a minute to make some observations about what we noticed during the experiment. How were each of the groups different? Well, if we can see here, the control group was a lot different than the groups that had sunscreen applied to them. And what does this tell us about our own skin and about why we need sunscreen? Well, our own skin kind of acts like these UV beads when we're out in the sun. So the UV rays can be really harmful to us if we don't put sunscreen on. Because as we can see, when we had the sunscreen, the beads were less affected. Finally, I'm going to leave you an experiment that you can do on your own. And I'll show you kind of how I did it in a sec. So what you're going to need for the experiment is you're going to need 2 different colors of construction paper. You'll need some scissors, you'll need some glue, and you'll need some tape. First, you're going to want to cut some shapes out from 1 color construction paper. And then you're going to want to glue these onto the second color of construction paper. Once you have them glued, you're going to want to tape your construction paper to the window, just like this. And then we'll wait for a week and see what happens, and we can compare the different colors to each other and see how the sun affected it. Now it's time to talk about another super cool scientist. Benjamin Banneker was the first Black astronomer, and using his knowledge of astronomy and math, he was able to predict the positions of the sun, the moon, and the planets. He also became really famous for fighting to end slavery in his letters to Benjamin Franklin. That's all I have for today. Thanks for joining me.